Right. That's why we've got so many comments. Look at your comments, Carl. I'm going to start. Why is it all my best material comes out when I'm muted? I didn't press the on-air button. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for bearing with me and watching me for 3 minutes, just doing my Marcel Marceau impersonation this morning of my mime artistry. That could get a bit boring after a few minutes, as if a few of you haven't gone already. But yes, when I see comments pouring in at such volume, I should know that something is wrong. Good now, yes. Okay, great. Bon dia. Okay. Oh, my word. Right, now, where was I? What I was saying was, look, the palavra de I'll do this all very quickly again, but the palavra de dia is back by popular request from Ree, okay? And we can choose. I was going to say the early bird catches the word because as the early bird's coming into the show this morning, you can choose the palavra de dia. For me, it's concordo. I've been looking at websites this morning to bring you a load of news articles, tell you what's going on in Portugal. But I realized it might be, and help me out here, please, Portuguese people. Should it be palavra da dia or palavra do dia? Have I got that correct on the screen? The other question I was asking you, new normal, old normal or different normal, after what, 9 months of the pandemic and the pandemic response, is there really any chance of us going back to how we used to be? Or has the world, have our lives, has this country, Portugal, changed, been stretched beyond a shape we once recognized? How are you preparing? How do you see the new normal? I will be sharing a number of articles this morning that suggest things are changing. I mean, there is good news. And the reason I'm asking about normal is because it looks like the curve has been somewhat flattened. There is positive news around COVID and the pandemic in terms of data and the numbers to share with you for one thing this morning. So lots to share with you. We normally start with the weather. I can do that in one word, which would be rain, okay? So it's raining, but as a public service broadcaster, as I see myself, I need to tell you about the weather warnings that are in place. So let's get those out of the way. We go to Safe Communities Portugal, as ever, for good information on such matters. And there is a yellow heavy rain warning issued by IPMA, one of my favorite acronyms in Portugal. 9 districts it's covering. A yellow heavy rainstorm warning is in place from 0200 hours this morning for the following districts: Faro, Algarve, and Setúbal until 3 o'clock. In these 2 districts, there's also a high wind warning of up to 80 kilometers per hour, which will be in place from 0800 to 1200 this morning. The weather in these areas is for showers, sometimes heavy, and accompanied by thunderstorms and strong gusts. Do like the word gust, which may occasionally be hail, everybody. Oh, my word. The heavy rains may be accompanied by thunderstorms. A yellow level heavy rain warning is also in place for Aveiro up to 1000 hours, 10 this morning, Leiria, Lisbon, Coimbra, and up to 1200, and Évora and Porto Alegre up to 1500 today. So be careful out there. Heavy rain. Even hail is expected and thunderstorms. During this morning, there were thunderstorms, especially in the south of the Algarve and in the Algarve itself, which can be seen in the maps that are provided by Safe Communities Portugal. Like their page, if you don't already, for excellent coverage on pandemic measures and also weather warnings of this kind. So I feel we've done our duty there to let you know what's going on with the weather. You Algarvians who tune in, how is it down there? Were you treated to a spectacular thunderstorm this morning? Okay, I won't bother with the temperatures. I think you get the gist of what's going on. And the rain is forecast for a few days, it has to be said. Oh, please include Madeira. Okay, well, let's go back. I will, if that's what you want. I will come back to that a little later on after the software, my extensive meteorological software has loaded up on the screen. We'll come back to that. Let's say a few hellos this morning. That's the easiest Portuguese ever, isn't it? Silence in Portuguese. Who was it who's saying that? Yeah, Dave and Debbie saying that. Yes, I think we can all manage that one. No normal, live life is Owen's answer to my question. There is no normal. Is that at any time at all, Owen, that we shouldn't think in terms of normal? It was Kim that wants me to do the Madeira and weather. We'll come back to that in a moment. Beautiful weather. Oh, there, you've done it for us, Kim. Are you in Madeira? How amazing. Have you tried Madeira and rum? I'm keen to do that myself. Bom dia, Carl, como va? Muito bom, obrigado. Cansada? cansada, talvez. Muito bom. E contigo? That was pretty good, wasn't it? Sounded all right. Yay, I hear ya. Ha ha ha, says Liz. Yes, is that me doing all my best material when the mic is muted? And yes, we're all good now, sound-wise, aren't we? Food dependence will be a big topic from here on in. Shifting away from intensive agriculture, efficient home gardening may well be a big thing overnight. I'm going to not burn the brash I cut yesterday from the trees and bury it like a hugel culture instead for future water retention. Water retention is something a lot of people, a lot of ladies want to get behind them. But there's Will in Obidos actively encouraging water retention there, better than burning it. I would agree, Will. Burning is very popular in Portugal, isn't it? And, you know, obviously, they are dealing with different volumes of what do you call it? Brash. Yes, brush and brash. So you would understand why people want to get rid of it quickly by burning it. However, one of my favorite things in the garden is my Lidl shredder, Lidl, not my little shredder, my Lidl shredder, which turns like old cuttings up to quite a size, this sort of girth, go in that machine. And every day I do a little bit of chipping, which goes back on the garden. I think, yeah, we should save our organic stuff and rot it down or mulch it down, because it's really useful in the garden, obviously, and it's not putting smoke into the atmosphere, which is good for all sorts of reasons. But it does deprive people of the joy of burning, which some people do have. Bon dia, todos. I just watched yesterday's show with Don and Jacqueline. It was great again. So shows being watched twice, repeats. This lady is so inspiring with tremendous emotional intelligence. And social intelligence, I have to say. That's the grandmother of our community, our resident expat elder, Donna Jacqueline, who joins me every Tuesday evening. Glad you enjoyed that, Jenny, over there in Belgium. And yes, says Kim, I have tried Madeira and rum. What's it like? Can you send us a bottle? So let me just go a bit further into the autonomous region district that is Madeira and let you know what the weather is like there. 9 degrees, possible drizzle. So be careful. That may be beautiful at the moment. I am seeing, and probably because of its, its island geography, we are looking at 7 days of straight rain. I'm sorry, you're probably sorry you asked, Kim. 11 degrees the high today, 9 only tomorrow, but that temperature will rise steadily towards the beginning of next week. But it was looking a little bit rainy there. So yes, sorry, 7 days of rain. For that, I apologize. Yes, Carl. 47 point. Yes, very funny, Gary. I know you understood my Portuguese, really. Jim, bon dia todos from a cloudy and cold Wiesbaden in Germany. Good morning to you, Jim. And Frank the Hat is here. Bon dia todos. Rain making up for all the sun we got. Fair enough. Yeah, it is. It's those 50 or so days that aren't sun. From Lisbon and southwards from Lisbon, 300 days of sunshine. We do need to remember that, don't we? That's normally what we're blessed with here. Oh yes, the palavra do dia, as requested by Ree, says, do you ever? I think I've got an idea for your show. You should do a bit of vocabulary every day, and that is in the week after we just kind of let the palavra do dia go. So it's back, folks. Dia is masculine. So it's the dia, not the palavra. So I was right in the first place. Is masculine. Dia. Dia. So, palavra do dia is, we will stay with that. Do make a suggestion. I've got concordo so far, which is something you need to know if you're going into websites and you want to agree. Isn't it tiresome how you have to do that on every website? Basically agree to the terms and conditions. I mean, can't we have a convention on the internet that if you look at a website, you're obviously accepting the conditions and terms of that website, and you do so at your own risk as you would if you were walking into a shop? Other people may have different ideas on that, but yeah, concordo is what you might see with the T's and C's that come up before you're allowed to enter a website. Concordo, I agree. Bon dia from Rita Adonis. Good morning to you, Rita. Finally, it's autumnal, fall. Yes, and that beautiful picture of a mushroom from Gilda at EI Migration Services, who we work with, a big partner of ours. She's sending me more beautiful pictures, and it's her autumn range that we'll be featuring for the next few days. Good morning to you, Rita. Morning, Carl. I love my shredder. Yeah, isn't it a fantastic thing? I obviously inspired you to drop me a line this morning, Dawn. A fellow shredding lover. I love mine, says Dawn. We have lots to shred in this garden. Already built 3 compost bins out of pallets, and I liquidize all the food compost to help it break down quicker. Yes, Mrs. M does that. And I do approve of all this gardening talk and Will's suggestion there that food security, food dependence, self-sufficiency, interdependence, collaboration around food, of course, because that's part of the Portuguese spirit, not only to grow food but share it. I'm loving this talk. Oh, watch out, actual Portuguese person here with us. Dona Graça is here, everybody. Dona Graça, bon dia, and please ignore the rain. That on behalf of the Portuguese folk, just ignore the rain, she's saying. But when I've talked to Graça about the rain, she said to me, isn't it lovely that everything is getting washed down and refreshed? And she's got a point. She's got a point. It's 24 degrees on my balcony, Santa Cruz, Madeira, a real hotspot. Hope too much rain doesn't arrive here. So I think, Kim, you might have a lovely microclimate. Jimmy Chew, how is Jimmy Chew doing? He's not chewing so much, Ty. I'm glad you asked. He's turning into a fine young man, a teenager, I saw a picture of him. When you photo scroll, we've got a Google dongle thing on the telly, and it just does a slideshow of our photographs. And I saw a picture of little Jimmy when he was a puppy. Oh, but now he's a big fella. He's a big fella. So I take him for a run around the garden. Whilst I'm picking up my bits for shredding, we go out together. We feed the chickens along with Peggy, the stray, as well. We go feed the chickens, make sure the chickens are all right, and we have a run around. Well, he has a run around the garden. I don't do that, and I look for sticks. Like a proper old giffer, picking up sticks, bringing them back for shredding. It's quite Christmassy, isn't it? Like good King Wenceslas might look out upon me, picking up twigs. I've got articles to read, everybody. Let's have a bit more of you commenting, and then come back to the articles, because there is a promised simplification of the current restrictions and measures from the Portugal News, which looked like a good place to start this morning. Palavra do dia from Kim. Thanks, Kim. Esperança. Recurrent normal, is that hope? Esperança it is for the moment. Yes, and that is hope. So that's great. I think we're going to go for that, and I need to figure out. I know I've bothered you with this before, but I've got to figure out how to do a cedilla and all the other accents. So let's just put Esperança in. I think that's a nice thing for us to have inside the Palavra do Dia box this morning. So today's Palavra do Dia, I'm going to see if I can also remember how to spell it from memory after just seeing it once. Esperança is hope. Let's get that on the screen for you now. There we go. Esperança it is. Sorry about the lack of the cedilla. And that's all about hope, which I think we're going to need a dose of that, aren't we? Along with practical sleeves rolled up action in forming our new normal and co-creating a new society in the wake of the pandemic. I think we are going to have to change a little bit, aren't we? There are things, some of the silver linings we've enjoyed that we might want to hold on to. There are terrible parts of it that we really want to put behind us. Tell us more about your hopes, your esperanza for post-pandemic times, which I sincerely hope we're moving into now. Gary, shredding and compromising are very therapeutic. I think he meant to put composting there. He hasn't got his glasses on. But actually, compromising is very therapeutic as well occasionally, isn't it? I mean, sometimes it's not. If you go against yourself and your wishes, that's not going to be therapeutic. That's just going to cause you some trouble later down the line. But occasionally, and men understand this, I think, and they get to a certain age, compromising can be very therapeutic. And I totally agree with you with shredding there, Gary. And Gilda, Gilda, I don't know if you were here at the beginning. I'm going to put your mushroom picture back on the screen for just one moment. That looks like the sort of bad boy you shouldn't be eating. We were told, weren't we, that there is no mushroom or fungus in Portugal that can do you terrible harm. I mean, it can do you some harm, some of the ones that you shouldn't be eating, but there are none that are thought to be lethal, as I understand it. But don't let me be your guide on that. There are far better people like Zé Paz, who does tours. Pete will tell you about this. Pete, the unofficial ambassador of Castanheira de Pera, will introduce you to José Paz, who does wonderful mushroom walks, really highly spoken of in central Portugal. In Australia, Andrew Scarborough, Bon Dia de Australia. So I've been watching The Crown, and I watched the Australian visit. Bob Hawke thought that Prince Charles might be able to kill off the monarchy single-handed in Australia, but no, Princess Di was there, wasn't she? And she made everybody, it sounded like everybody in Australia suddenly became a royalist again with that visit from Lady Di, Princess Di, back in the 80s. Ciao, guys, from Kim Lambert. Have a great day, Kim. Have a great day. Thanks for popping in. Will Thompson, really, Gary? The tiny, angry twig, munching, throaty, cutty, noisy, metal, shake it, shark tooth chomper is therapeutic. You better believe it, Will. Me and Gary are a complete agreement with that. Bon dia, my dear. We got all the grass cut yesterday just in time for all this rain. And I trust you're composting that grass, Sean. Will Thompson, they freak me out a bit. Mini shredders. Yeah, we haven't got an industrial thing here, but it's really beautifully designed. It's a great bit of German design, I'm guessing. And it makes light work of big twigs, and then they look beautiful when they're spread on the garden or chucked in the chicken shed. The chickens love, scratching through it. So yes, we can help you. We can give you counselling on the noisy shredder thing. Still haven't made my mind up about the pastel de nata liqueur. Had some more last night and none the wiser. It could become a habit, Gary. Anyone else tried that? I think it's called 35. It is a pastel de nata flavoured liqueur. 13%, I believe. So not a bad thing to drink as you go into the evening as a little nightcap. But Gary, still the jury's out for him. His inner jury is not sure about that beverage. Be happy with the rain. Be happy with the rain. Rain is needed here in Belgium. Almost no rain in recent months. This predicted problems in the summer. Yeah, and same with the reservoirs in the Algarve. They are low, and there is a bit of a crisis there, I believe. Meditation is getting me through. You and me both, Ellie. Oh, I normally do a live stream meditation. Didn't do one yesterday. You've reminded me, Ellie. Get too busy, you forget. This is the thing, isn't it? But I'm glad to hear that, Ellie. And I suspect, yes, interesting point. Meditation, mindfulness, just the act of being still and pausing for a moment. Even that, I think, is really powerful. That might be part of the new normal, right? Because we've had our emotional resilience tested, haven't we? And our ability to cope. And I see the amount of antidepressants for sale in Portugal. That's one little article we might look at. It is quite staggering. And obviously people are under a lot of stress at the moment. What do you do about that? Meditation. I think me and Ellie would recommend meditation to you if you haven't tried that. Cheers to Portugal from Alaska, from Marty P. It's midnight here. Wow. Isn't that amazing? Midnight and a bit chilly, I suspect, as well, Marty P. Great to hear from you. Auto text, but I think I like the end statement. Yeah, compromise is therapeutic. We'll go with that. Get some T-shirts made up. Good morning from Jersey, from Vera. That'd be New Jersey, right? Or is that Jersey in the Channel Islands? No, Jersey in the Channel Islands. Let's go with that. Good morning to you, Vera. Lovely to hear from you. Shredding and compromising. That's some gas bar philosophy. Nice one, Garbo. And to you, Will, ear protection. And in this, the business I'm in, I should probably protect my ears a bit. Mine is not a loud one. Sorry, we're talking far too much about shredders now, possibly, aren't we? For those of you who don't have them and are now suffering from shredder envy, I do apologize. Okay, let's go take a look at the Portugal news now, and a bit of the backstory first. Portugal entered a new state of emergency today. In case you didn't know, I mean, I imagine there are people now who think, do you know what? I don't know what's going on. I don't understand the regulations. I'm just going to stay indoors. I imagine that's one way of dealing with it, isn't it? It's like, I don't know whether I could drive from here to there, whether I should be out after this time, whether I can go to a shop with my underpants on my head at the moment. So one strategy would just be to stay at home and just stay out of it. And I'm sure people are doing that. But just in case you didn't know, just to bring some clarification here, Portugal entered a new state of emergency today for another 15 days. This was as of yesterday, reported in the Portugal news. Thank you to the Portugal news for this coverage. Portugal has today, this was yesterday, entered a new state of emergency, or the continuation thereof, really, due to COVID-19 pandemic for another 15 days. So we're in for another 15 days of the state of emergency, and this would be day 2. The 278 municipalities on the mainland are now divided into 4 groups, depending on the levels of risk of transmission, classified from moderate to extremely high. And of course, the north has the worst of it, as ever, and still continues to be the case. The new state of emergency will last until just before midnight on the 8th of December. General measures for the whole country include the prohibition of traveling between municipalities. This is an important bit. So the prohibition of traveling between municipalities between 11 p.m. on November the 27th and 5 a.m. on December the 2nd. That's one of the longest, if not the longest stretch of prohibited travel, right? Between November the 27th and 5 a.m. on December the 2nd. These are upcoming Portuguese bank holidays. And between 11 p.m. on December the 4th and 11:59 p.m. on December the 8th. Masks are now mandatory in the workplace as well. So those are the really, I suppose, key bits that you need to be aware of according to the news online there from Portugal News. And they also have a guide, which I'm trying to find now, oh yeah, here we go. This is good. Portugal lockdown rules explained. This should be useful, shouldn't it? Let's see if that's coming up for you on your screen. I will read it out anyway. And this is prompting as well answers to the question: new normal, old normal, or different normal? How do you foresee things when we put this behind us largely? Let's go back to this article then. Essential points: the measures and exceptions of the new state of emergency. So here, I hope this will be helpful to you. The government decree regulating the implementation of the new state of emergency due to COVID-19 pandemic in force from midnight yesterday, the 24th of November, lists the measures and establishes the exceptions to the bans imposed. The containment measures for the new state of emergency, which will apply until the 8th of December, folks, were announced on the 21st of November by the PM, Antonio Costa. And as we heard there, we have the continent's 278 municipalities divided into 4 groups from extremely high down to moderate. In the 127 municipalities classified as extremely high and very high risk, the curfew will continue to be enforced between 11 and 5, 11 in the evening and 5 in the morning on working days. This is so in extremely high and very high risk areas. There is a curfew between 11 p.m. at night and 5 in the morning, as well as between 1 in the afternoon and 5 a.m. on the weekend of the 28th and 29th of November. That's the upcoming weekend, and the weekend of the 5th and the 6th of December, and on the holidays of the 1st and the 8th of December. Portuguese public holidays coming up on the 1st and 8th of December, where these restrictions will apply in extremely high and very high risk areas. On the eve of the holidays, commercial establishments will be closed from 3 p.m. in the afternoon, 3 p.m. in these 127 municipalities. Given that there are 278 on the continent here, that's getting towards half of those, isn't it? And in the 86 municipalities considered to be high risk, the curfew between 11 in the evening and 5 in the morning will be enforced on the 7 days of the week. In the whole continental territory, we're forbidden to move between municipalities between 11 p.m. on 27th of November and 5 a.m. on the 2nd of December, and between 11 p.m. on the 4th of December and just before midnight on the 8th of December. Now, this is where people's eyes start to glaze over and people think, hold on a minute, what? So I will this is the best explanation I've seen for a while. I think it's, striking the right balance between going into the entire complexity of the situation and picking out the relevant bits. So that is the link is now in the comments, should you wish to peruse that at your leisure. In mainland Portugal, patients with COVID-19, those infected with SARS-CoV-2, and citizens for whom the health authority or other health professionals have determined active surveillance are placed in mandatory confinement in a health establishment at their home or elsewhere defined by the health authorities. The use of masks or visors is compulsory in the workplace where physical separation is not possible, not applicable where mask is carried out in offices or rooms with no other occupants, or where waterproof physical barriers are used. The sale of alcoholic beverages is prohibited in service areas or at petrol stations, and from 8 p.m. in retail outlets. I fell foul of that on Monday night. By the time I got to the checkout, it was just after 8, and the guy had to just say, you can't have that, and put it to. There was a little gathering pile of bottles, obviously, that other people before me had tried to buy. So no buying of booze after 8 at the moment in the state of emergency, and none at all in service stations and petrol stations. You can't buy booze there like you used to be able to. The consumption of alcoholic beverages is forbidden in open air spaces and on public roads, except on esplanades. How do you say that? It's a bit like archipelago, isn't it? Archipelago. After 8 p.m., the consumption of alcoholic beverages on the esplanades can only be done as part of the meal service. Private vehicles with a capacity of more than 5 seats can only circulate with 2/3 of their capacity, except if all occupants are in the same household. Occupants must wear masks or visors. No, surely not. If you're on your own in a car, you don't have to wear a mask, do you? Commercial establishments, please say no. Commercial establishments with a maximum indicative capacity of 0.05 people per square meter. Don't know what that one means. Commercial establishments may not be open before 10 in the morning, with the exception of hairdressers. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Barbers, beauty institutes, restaurants and the like, cafeterias, tea houses and the like, driving schools and vehicle technical inspection centres, as well as gyms and fitness centres. So gyms and fitness centres can open before 10 a.m, can open at all. Most shops close between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m, with the local health authority and security forces being able to set the closing time within this interval, as well as the opening hours. Restaurants must close at 1 in the morning, with new admissions until midnight. And that's a good part of Portuguese life, isn't it? Late eating is not affected, although they have to close at 1 a.m, which doesn't seem so bad, with new admissions until midnight, and their capacity is limited to 50%. And this is why people are heading to the capital today. I will also be telling you about the bread and water movement, Pão e Água. There is a protest in the capital today from people from hospitality and tourism who are struggling, obviously, with this kind of measure, or that's if they've got a job at all. Groups in restaurants are limited to 6 people unless they belong to the same household, except in establishments located up to 300 meters from a school, and in food courts in shopping centres where they're limited to 4 people if they're not from the same household. Public services maintain a face-to-face service by appointment. That's good to know for us expats, isn't it? So public services will maintain a face-to-face service by appointment. In the concert halls and cinemas, has anyone been to a concert hall or a cinema in this community in these last few months? In the concert halls and cinemas, the seats occupied must have a gap between the spectators who are not cohabitants, and in the next row, the seats must not be occupied. In the case of a stage, the minimum distance of at least 2 meters between the stage and the front row of spectators must be guaranteed for obvious reasons. In open air shows, the seats must... I'm going into too much detail here, obviously, aren't I? And there's loads of it. Look at this. And this is why people get confused, because there is so much. But still, I think this is a pretty good guide, and they've laid out the most important stuff early on in the article. PortugalNews.com. Go to that for what I think is a pretty good Portugal lockdown rules explained. Any more normals that you wish to share with us about how the future is going to look? We do have a weather report from Castanheira de Pera. I'll come back to that in just a moment. Hold on, we're talking about streaming now as well. I'm not going to comment on that news. Still early for me to start ranting. Feel free, but I also understand that you're saving us from your rants, Joel. Bon dia from Andy Craig. Good morning to you, Andy. Gary, streaming is the tops as far as thinking and meditation are concerned. You get a lot of things sorted out. Trust me, I used to do it for a living. Wow. Okay. I didn't realize you were a professional streamer, Gary. It just sounds so much like professional stripper. If anyone helps, which I no doubt you were as well in your illustrious career, Ty, if anyone helps out a charity, then you can obtain exemptions for travel. The shelter I help out are arranging the paperwork needed. That's good to know, Ty. So if you work for a charity, you will need a docket, bit of paper to show your papers, should you get stopped. But that's good that you can still do your bit to a local charity. Excellent news. Thanks, Ty, for that. Must have something to do with the hum of the engine and the arc motion. A bit like fly fishing, but with a lethal piece of plastic on the end there for those little insects. And yeah, you got to watch out for the frogs, haven't you, as well? Light rain here in Castanheira de Pera. The wood stove is on again. Here we go. I'll do it in a slower, calmer voice. The picture here from Castanheira de Pera. The wood stove is on again, with chicken soup bubbling away for lunch. Off out soon to do the pre-lockdown shopping. Bumps back into normal there, doesn't it? Back out for the pre-lockdown shopping. Pete, good morning to you, sir. 2/3 of 5 people. Okay, I know it got into some detail and some grey area there, Gary. Morning. Chucking it down here this morning, and has been all night. Very wet start to the day on the coast. I will be ringing you, Valerie. Sorry, I blew out on my call to you a couple of days ago. We're both busy people. I had to look up the word shredding in English. Versnipperen is in Dutch, and in Portuguese it is trituração e compostagem. Is it correct? Should we go with... We could be saying something terrible, couldn't we? That could be some awful sexual euphemism or something. Trituração, but we'll see. Learning English and Portuguese with the show, fantastic. Palavra do dia from Pete is apoio or support. And yes, talking of which, apoio, that's a word I've come to know from my dealings with Vodafone. Did I tell you about Vodafone ever? Or Nodaphone, as I call them? All is well, folks. Went into the shop to see my favourite contact, and he said made a phone call. Just to put you in the picture, I was given a €600 bill from Vodafone, who were trying to penalise me, and it was for not returning their equipment, which I'd done, and I've got the receipt to prove it, as well as ending their contract early, which they did to me. They cut me off and then tried to charge me for finishing their contract. So that's why on Sunday night, when I opened my emails and looked at my Vodafone invoice, I was a little bit shocked, nearly fell off my chair. 600 and something euros. And then I went into the local shop, the agency, and the guy rang him up, and I've been listening to the same tune that Vodafone play for the last 2 months now. I cannot stand Jack Johnson anymore. I'm sorry, Jack, but Vodafone have done this to you and your music. But the guy says, "Oh, it's fine. Don't worry. They've credited you." Well, thanks for telling me after sending me a bill for €600. You know, in the background, in the back office, they've decided to credit it. They haven't told me. They haven't apologized to me. And this is the problem with big corporations, isn't it? They just don't care. You know, ultimately, each customer is an individual, you know, with their feelings. And you know, to receive a bill which they just credit but don't tell you. I said to them yesterday, this isn't just bad service. This is unkind to do this sort of thing to people. Luckily, I managed to regain my zen through my meditation practice, actually, to be coming back to what was it, or Ellie who mentioned a meditation this morning. But yes, I did. I went into full-on mindfulness, and I thought to myself, it's only money. I mean, it's a lot of money, but I can't believe how I'm letting this affect me. So within minutes, I'd regained my composure. But it's a disgusting way to treat people, I think. So I let them have it. I found a way to communicate with them. I tried Twitter yesterday, which I think is quite a good way of bringing your situation to public attention. And I saw my moment. You know, the way social media, the phone must, you know, all of these platforms talk to each other. Suddenly, because I'm talking about Vodafone, their page comes up. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll put this to my advantage. And I started dealing with a service rep, an apoyo, on Facebook, and detailed them. I invited them onto the show. You know, I told them that I'm telling people awful things about you most days at the moment. You know, talk to me about this. How about an apology? But stony-faced, metaphorically stony-faced silence. You know, yes, it's to do with not returning your equipment, but it looks like you did, so we won't be charging you that. Not an apology anywhere, not a compensation or anything to make good on this. It's like they really don't give a so-and-so about it. So anyway, enough of my ranting there about Vodafone or Nodaphone or Rogaphone. All right, Gary, Monophone. Yes, I get it. Valerie forgives me. I sat staring at my phone all day. And message experiment. Christina, I'm sorry, I must have said something that triggered that, and I don't understand what that is now. Oh, are you experimenting with sending me a message? If that is the case, mission accomplished. It came through. Okay, in ranting mood, that's not all. If they knew the amount of high-speed caress I want to give to those companies, they would act more humanly for sure. That's a lovely Portuguese phrase. The high-speed caress. Very good. I have to remember that. Apologies, not very... Oh, controversial. Apology, not very common here. Is that right, Safiro? Portuguese, not given to apology? Is that a cultural thing? You know, we talked about this last night, didn't we? Directness in conversation. And so maybe part of that directness is, you know, we're not into the fawning business like you Brits are. First word I learned here was desculpe. In Portuguese, because the British use it for many things. I think there's a book in that, isn't there? The 300 ways British people can use the word sorry. And they do. They really do. You know, I'm guilty as any Brit for that. But that's an interesting comment, Christina. I wonder what prompts you to say that. Okay, have I done this justice? No. I wanted to tell you about all sorts of articles that inform the new normal, the old normal, a different normal. You know, looking at the news headlines of the Portugal resident, for example. The great news, actually, and I should mention this, the great news is that, and we went into this in some detail last night, but yesterday saw the lowest number of new virus cases in Portugal for 13 days. We shouldn't move on without mentioning that. So let me just share that with you very briefly. The COVID numbers yesterday show that not only are new case numbers progressively coming down, but that Portugal has tallied the lowest number of new cases in the last 13 days. Also, really big changes in the amount of recoveries. Another plus point is that the number, this is according to Natasha Don, is the number of people who've tested positive and have now tested negative and deemed recovered, even when many of them never felt ill in the first place, she adds. I do love her reporting, has increased massively, up by nearly 7,500 in the last day, which is fantastic. And she makes a very good comment here. Even the pressure in the intensive care units is lowering. That's a concern for people, understandably. And then she says, thus, if one looks at today's numbers without looking at media headlines, I like what you did there, Natasha, there is a lot to be positive about. The suggested measures, they suggest measures to reduce states of transmission must be working. Something is working. So that's really good news from the Portugal resident there. And finally, as things are changing and discontent and confusion is growing, I mean, I think we can say that it's a fact. People are taking to the streets today. And I will finish with a little look at the bread and water movement, in case you didn't know about that. And you're forgiven for not knowing, because most of the coverage, I think, is in Portuguese about that grassroots movement, about what's happening among the people who have been, seriously affected by the pandemic measures. Not the pandemic itself necessarily, but certainly by the measures and the response to it. We'll finish with that, but let's first a few more of your comments. No, we apologize, says Joel Safiro. It's the corporates that became inhumane. So the Caricia yes, the high-speed caress is very needed now. And then to remind them we are living beings. It's so true, isn't it? And I mean, this is a reflection, obviously, of how people feel unjustly treated by the pandemic measures and why they don't seem to make sense. Because when you start looking at people as numbers, you treat them differently. And obviously the massive phone companies, I'm not a human being to them. I am numbers on a sheet, aren't I? That should be paying this, that, or the other. I mean, I suppose what they fail to recognize with my numbers is that I'm actually a very good customer of theirs and have been for a year or two now. And you might think that would warrant a little bit more customer or better customer service and some, have had good service from them. But in this particular regard of being cut off and overcharged, they have been terrible. They really have. So thank you for that. Your input there, Safaro Joel. On a Greek holiday, I was with my last partner, vegan and vegan kids. The chef, so you were with your partner who was vegan and had vegan kids. The chef hid ham under the cheese mistakenly. Chaos ensued as they were being sick and crying as they discovered ham in their gullet. The manager said we should still pay because all the pizzas had started being eaten. This is turning into watchdog sort of customer service crisis, isn't it? Customer service from hell. That doesn't sound too great, Will. I'm sorry to hear that. Bacalhau for the Portuguese is similar to apologies for the British. There is one for every day of the year. Very good, Neil. Very good. I like that. And big numbers. I don't know what that means, Gary, but big numbers, is that a cue for a Donald Trump impersonation? Big numbers. Apoyo, concorda, confiar em, are very important words in every language. So yes, help, I agree. And confiar em, I don't know what that means. Capitalism is about numbers, profit and loss. It's the world we live in, I think Gary might be suggesting there. Yes, and that's, for me, if we're talking about new normal, old normal, or different normal, can we please see each other as human beings and not numbers in the future? And that's why I'm such a localist. When you know the people you're dealing with, if you're a government official, if they can catch your eye in a local cafe or in the street and you're presiding over their lives, I imagine they're going to be more accountable than they are if they're in a distant office hundreds of kilometers away, right? And that, of course, should we get started about the Great Reset? But when there are people in Davos talking about you like you're a number and what you should be doing in terms of pretty much every aspect of your life, your health, your wealth, your education, etc. You billionaires in Davos, I just don't like being treated like a number by you folks, and that's why I do not want this increasing trend of centralization to continue to its awful conclusion. Let's decentralize, let's localize. I'm hoping that's one of the post-pandemic moves or changes or transformations for society, is that we start relating to each other on a local level. We get to know our neighbors, because we might have to, folks. Carl Munson, the localist, on the localist agenda. Absolutely. And trust is what confiar means. Trust. That's really good. Trust, support, and agreement. The words of today. Catch Mortal Engines on Netflix for carrying on from yesterday, what you're watching at the moment. Catch Mortal Engines on Netflix, a good rainy day movie adventure. Thoroughly enjoyed it last night. Thank you for that, Will. A little bit of a recommendation there. And that was a very good Trump impression. Not many people have said that about my Trump impersonation. I won't hazard another go at that, but I'll leave that as a high point, having impressed you, Deborah. Is there any specific topic for today? No, Mohammed, there's never well, we start out with a good intention that there be a specific topic, but it's a bit chatty, it's a bit open-ended, and we follow our noses. So sorry, no, if you're the sort of person who likes a specific topic, this might not be for you, or suggest one. The pack of apology, or the lack of apology in the corporate world, is probably in line with the start of litigation in our culture. Interesting, Mark. Shifting the I suppose the bandwidth of how people deal with each other, and moving into like accepting that mistakes are made and we'll sort it out in court later. Please God, no. No comments on it. Who is orange? I think that's a Trump reference there. Okay, so finally, 9:45 it is again. Unbelievable. Just very quickly then, manifestation, bread and water. Restaurant. This is a translation of an originally Portuguese news item from Sapo. Restaurant business people promote protest in Lisbon. Association classifies the situation in the sector as hopeless. If nothing is done, the number of unemployed could reach 100,000 at the beginning of next year. I think just that's within the particular sector. A national concentration of catering businessmen, but also of hotels, commerce and culture, is scheduled for this Wednesday today in Lisbon. The protest, called a Pau e Agua movement, the bread and water movement, intends to demand more support from the government in view of the break in activity caused by the pandemic. In the Renaissance, Daniel Serra, president of the National Association of Restaurants, classifies the situation in the sector as hopeless. At the moment, we have 42 to 43,000 unemployed, but at the beginning of the year, this number may reach 100,000. What we ask the government to do is proactively help now to be reimbursed later, as the measures have not been adequate. Hundreds of restaurant workers from Braga, Porto, Vila Nova de Gaia and Aveiro will leave Wednesday in a caravan with buses and light vehicles for the demonstration in Lisbon. The same official recalled that in 2015, at the time of legislative elections, the current Prime Minister, Antonio Costa, sent a letter to the businessmen of the restaurant saying that he counted on them and counted. Sorry, that's been lost in translation. But I think what's being said there is people were told how vital they were to the economy, and they're not feeling it at the moment. And just this final thing, and this was another reason to prompt our discussion about what might the new normal look like. Will we possibly return to an old normal? I think not. And can we co-create a different normal? For Portugal, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, predicts a 10% drop in 2020 and a 6.5% recovery for 2021. That's responding to the paragraph before. Measures to combat COVID-19 have paralyzed entire sectors of the world economy, and the IMF has warned that the pandemic will reverse the progress made since the 1990s. That's terrible news in terms of poverty and increases in inequality. So that's what's happening in the capital today. The bread and water movement are making their way in a caravan from all over, not in a caravan, but in a convoy. Yes, can you imagine? It would be like an episode of Top Gear, wouldn't it, if they were all going in a caravan? But the caravan of a different kind. to the capital to make their feelings felt. And I hope they get what they're looking for. I really do. So there you go. I'm sure our conversation about what to do post pandemic will continue. I think we need to talk about it, and I'm sure we will here on this show. And this is a network, it's a community. I imagine we might be working together as we face the coming months and years with various collaborations and networking. And that's what I humbly put before you. Do use this community and this network as a way of structuring your future in part. It makes it sound a bit sort of like I'm trying to create my own new world order here, but no, if it can play a modest part in connecting people for the future, that would be a great result for me. Would love to see drone footage following this convoy, says Will. I imagine if you watch the news tonight, you will see coverage of the bread and water movement. Christina, okay, on my computer now, figured it out. I've been here 30 years. Go to Portuguese to get an idea. Are you a cheesemonger? Portuguese. We'll have a look at that, and maybe we should get. If you've been here on the show if you've been here in the country for 30 years, we should get you on the show. Like my guest tonight, Joanna will be back. Laughter Yoga Joanna is back tonight for an expat chat. It appears I only speak to women expats. Men are invited as well, but only this will be my fifth, I think, interview with an expat woman, female. Talking about their experience. Christina, you might be a good candidate for that as well. So send me a PM. And tomorrow we talk to ACP, the Automobile Association of Portugal, and we find out about what they do and also how to import a vehicle. Wine Club tomorrow night. We'll be tasting this beauty tomorrow evening from just after 9 as well. And on Friday, Feel Good Friday, with Jennifer from Holly Healthy. Will be joining us. So lots of lovely conversations to look forward to. And I look forward to... I've made a mistake here. I look forward to your company. And before we go, queixa is not cheese. It means complaint. Have you been complaining in Portugal for 30 years, Christina? I definitely need to speak to you. There sounds like a big backstory there. Drones probably are following Will on the convoy. So keep an eye on the news today. See how the bread and water people get on. They are such an important part of Portugal, folks. It's why we moved here, isn't it? Because of the hospitality here, the cafes, the restaurants, and so on. They need our support. From a friend, we are here since January this year, and we already adapted to the slow speed of living and also learned to be patient. We hated planning when we lived in Belgium, but then you felt the pressure of society weighing on you. Here we just go with the flow, and miraculously, energy starts flowing much easier. What surprised us most is even without a plan and letting go, everything we had in our heads before we left gets done without any effort, so it seems. The Zen of Life in Portugal from the forthcoming book. Thank you, Jenny, for that. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this morning. Take care. Bye for now. Abraços, beijinhos. Ciao, ciao.